There have been a lot of community days over the years with various different exclusive moves for specific Pokemon. We've done plenty of analyses on their viability, but which Comm Day moves are the worst? Whether they were bad from the get-go or have since been outclassed, we're breaking down the worst of the worst, so let's get into it. Welcome back, everyone. We started thinking about bad Community Day moves with the recent Ralts Comm Day Classic. Obviously it was a great event, but Synchronoise isn't really used on either Gardevoir or Gallade, so let's start with them. Synchronoise itself is a pretty decent move for PvP, but for Gardevoir, it wants Triple Axle because it's cheaper, provides better coverage, and boosts its own attack, plus Shadow Ball for a Ghost-type nuke. And Gallade prefers the cheap and powerful moveset of Leaf Blade and Close Combat. Even in raids, Psychic was buffed shortly after Synchronoise debuted, surpassing the exclusive move for PvE, so the move is largely useless on these two. A similar thing happened with Earth Power Flygon. Now this move was actually the best ground move on Flygon for quite a while, making it a better raid attacker and the best nuke for PvP. However, years later we got the new move of Scorching Sands. Not only was this move a smidge better in raids, but it was cheaper in PvP and provided a much higher attack debuff chance compared to Earth Power. Thus, Earth Power can largely be ignored. An earlier Comm Day where this kind of happened was with Swinub Community Day. Mamoswine received Ancient Power, which did have some use in PvP, but due to Giratina running rampant in the GBL early on, Ancient Power was nerfed pretty badly, and even though the move did get a slight buff to balance things out a little bit, Mamoswine's best moveset long surpassed it with Avalanche and High Horsepower. Next is a move that I barely ever see used, and that's Dragon Pulse on Ampharos. This move was seemingly added for Ampharos' eventual Dragon-type Mega Evolution. However, without a Dragon Fast move, Ampharos never panned out as a Dragon attacker. And even in PvP, Ampharos had better choices early on, and now it's got several charged moves, all of which are much, much better. Next are a few Pokemon whose moves do have some use, but they're so niche that they're barely worthwhile. Some of these include Counter on Alakazam, Bullet Seed on Shiftry, and Wild Charge on Galarian Rapidash. Two community days that happened in the same month were Electabuzz and Magmar, with their evolutions getting the opposite type move. For Magmortar, it's not a very good PvP Pokemon, and Thunderbolt isn't that good of a move, but it does help it coverage-wise. Electivire with Flamethrower, on the other hand, is far more useless. With it already having access to Ice Punch, it hardly wants Flamethrower for coverage, and it has a better powerful nuke in the form of Wild Charge. Another is 2022's Drain Punch Beware. Now Beware is a Pokemon you rarely see in PvP, and that's partly because Drain Punch is a really underwhelming move. While it's cheap and does boost the user's defense, its power is way too low to be worthwhile. Superpower and Stomp both perform better. There's also Wild Charge Blissey, and that was definitely a choice. If you're using Blissey for gym defense, Wild Charge is a good move, but most times Dazzling Gleam or Psychic would be better to hit back against fighting types. The same can be said for Body Slam Slacking in 2019. Now that is a spammier move, so it has more use, but Play Rough hits fighting types for super effective, which can definitely be better. And then there's Boom Burst Noivern. And it stinks that Boom Burst is such a good move in the main series, but it's a mediocre one in Pokemon Go. It has good power, but it's way too expensive, especially on something glassy like Noivern. Before we move to the very worst Community Day move, I wanted to mention Megahorn Clodsire, one that was recently available during the Steeled Resolve event. If you missed it though, you weren't missing much. Megahorn isn't a bad move, but Clodsire definitely doesn't want to give up the coverage of Stone Edge or Sludge Bomb, or the power of Earthquake, and we really haven't had any cups where it would prefer Megahorn. But now we move to the worst Community Day move in the history of Pokemon Go. So far at least. All of the moves on this list have at least had some slight intention behind them, either just being outclassed later on, or providing something slightly different or new for the featured Pokemon. This move, though, is just a flat-out downgrade. We're of course talking about 2022's Poltergeist Chandelure. Now this Ghost Fire type uses Shadow Ball for its Ghost attacking moveset, a strong 2-bar move that's pretty hard to beat. Poltergeist was made a 1-bar move, and 1-bar moves can be strong, but this one, 140 power, but a sluggish 3.6 second duration. For comparison, The good 140 power 1-bar moves like Meteor Beam are about 1.5 to 2 seconds faster, and while the move got a slight buff to 3.5 seconds with last fall's raid revisions, it's still really bad. It isn't good now, and it definitely wasn't at release. Not even party play makes it the preferable ghost move, and in PvP, it's also really bad. At 75 energy for 150 power, it does have a good damage per energy ratio of 2, and that is higher than Shadow Ball's 1.8. However, the move is just too expensive for something frail like Chandelure to use in PvP. It's already a glass cannon that's rarely seen in the GBL, but even when you do run it, you'll typically use its cheaper charged moves like Flame Charge, Shadow Ball, or Energy Ball. Poltergeist takes 1 additional Incinerate compared to those moves, and a glassy Pokemon like Chandelure may not even survive that long. But I will give Poltergeist this. As the worst Community Day move, it allows Chandelure to continue running the non-legacy moveset of Hex and Shadow Ball for ghost attacking, and Fire Spin and Overheat for fire attacking, so you can just use normal TMs to switch its moveset to either type, not having to worry about keeping a legacy move that's optimal. So perhaps Poltergeist was actually the best exclusive move they could give it, and Poltergeist itself does have a little bit of use on other Pokemon, most specifically Great League Dusclops. This was a different kind of video than we typically do, but let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Any Community Day moves you found disappointing? And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming content. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.